Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Oh, Hare Krishna. So I welcome all the distinguished guests, students, and the devotees for this Prerana festival. It's nice to be back amongst all of you, and it is nothing short of a miracle that for the last 3 years we have been continuing this festival without a break, and this is the 4th year. We began in 2002, and very soon we will be celebrating the 50th Prerana festival sometime in the month of September or October. And a lot of this credit goes to the youth preachers here at Shri Radha Gopinath Mandir, who have dedicated themselves totally to the cause of sharing this unlimited wealth of spiritual knowledge with the misdirected youth in modern civilization in the city of Bombay, tirelessly working to go to the college campuses, give this message, cultivate the students, invite them for this festival. And even organizing of this festival takes a lot of effort, energy, coordination. So it is a fantastic team effort which has been going on successfully for the last several years. And of course, all credit to all of you for having made this possible by attending these programs regularly. And I know hundreds of students and young boys who have been benefited and their lives have transformed simply by coming in contact with these festivals. So I'm grateful to all of you that you are with great enthusiasm participating in these festivals. And today we have chosen a very interesting topic, curing the cancer of the mind. I would like to dedicate this Prerana festival to my godbrother who just departed a couple of months back, His Grace Krishna Prabhu, a very close dear friend of mine, and he was battling against cancer in the last few months. And his character, his example, and his life's dedication inspired me to choose this topic, because he was suffering from cancer of the body, but he was a fitting example of someone who was in divine consciousness, perfectly fit and healthy as far as the mind is concerned, till up to the very last moment of his life. So therefore, this is a very, very important topic for discussion. And so I thought that I will share this with all of you. So today's discussion will be in the 3 format like this. First we'll discuss what is the mind mechanism. Then I'll share with you what is the mind cancer which we are talking about, and then cure for this cancer. So let us check out the mind mechanism. What exactly is this mechanism of the mind? As all of us know that mind is a subtle body, and it is within this gross body, and it goes through the processes of thinking, feeling, and willing. So most of us have some idea about the mind, but very few of us have done anything practical to control or take care of the problems related to the mind. All of us have heard of yoga, different types of yoga practices. Spirituality has been prevalent in India from time immemorial. But most people in India although being exposed to this knowledge at a rudimentary level and having some understanding, very rarely take to the practice of a process which will actually help them control the mind and purify the mind. I give the example, like when I was in New Jersey, I was giving this example, that typically in India there are so many temples, so many wonderful places of worship, places of pilgrimage. Practically everyone has visited some temple or other throughout his whole life. So I was giving this example. When you go to a hospital, you know why you are going. To get treated. When you go to a shopping mall, you know why you are going. To buy some food, to buy some grains. When you go to a vegetable store, you know why you are going. To buy vegetables. When you go to a car mechanic, you know why you are going. To get your car repaired. When you go to a school and college, you know why you are going. To get educated. So practically every place you visit, you know why you are going. There is only one place you go regularly, but you do not know why you are going, that is temple. Because you ask 10 different people why you have come here. You will get 10 different answers. When somebody is visiting a doctor and there are 10 people sitting in the doctor's line, you don't expect anyone to say that I have come here because my car is not functioning properly. There is some problem with me, with my body. He's very clear about it. But you ask someone, why you are going to temple? The exams are coming. You ask another person, next person, why are you coming? I've just given the exams. Third person, why are you going? Results have just come and I'm gone. So I have come here. So everyone has a different purpose. Some desires, some frustration, different types of activities one is performing. But we are coming here to the temple for what purpose? It is amazing. Throughout our life, this is the one place we have been regularly going without knowing why. And most of us have been going because our parents were going. And when we ask question, why are you going? I don't know, my father was going. And therefore you should also go. Therefore this temple is just like a hospital. A hospital where treatment is given to the sick mind. The mind which is a connecting interface between the body and the soul. And therefore we come here to get treated. First to get the understanding, knowledge, and then go through the treatment procedure. Therefore, we have to understand first the relevance of a temple like this. It is a place where you get information about your disease. It is a place where the medicines are distributed. It is a place where understanding is given as to how you can actually regain your mental and spiritual health. So therefore, this mechanism has to be understood. So all of us have consciousness. Good. And this consciousness leads to attitudes. The attitude leads to a certain kind of perception. Perception leads to behavior. And this behavior leads to memory. The memory leads to thoughts. And that in turn determines your consciousness. So this is like a cycle. This has to be understood properly. For example, every place has a certain kind of attitude with respect to dealing with people, with respect to performing certain activities. And based on those attitudes, we have a certain kind of perception. I'll give you an example. Srila Prabhupada was in Africa. And it was a very brave move on his part to even try to attempt to preach in Africa. Because it's a very, very dangerous place. And when he was preaching there, the first day he landed, the next morning he found out that most of his clothes, which he had put out for drying after washing, had been stolen. And then he sat down for giving the Bhagavatam class, and he saw in the audience that his own disciples had stolen different clothes. Now, as far as that place is concerned, it was quite common to do this. Anything you find, you pick it up and wear. Do not consider whom it belongs to, whether it is appropriate or not. So these attitudes are common. And so Srila Prabhupada began his lecture by saying, you must not steal Guru's clothes. That was the level from which he began. Because first, he had to change their attitudes and perceptions. And then only behavior can be changed. And in fact, generally you have 4 regulatory principles: no meditating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling. They had to add a 5th regulatory principle: do not eat flies. Do not catch flies during Bhagavatam class. So while sitting and hearing class, if something would fly, they would catch and pop it in the mouth. So it was a common thing there. It was part of the regular behavior. But why? Because certain attitudes and perception are there. And the kind of behavior you have, that creates certain memories within. And that memory will actually create further thoughts. And then you are forced to engage in certain activities, one after another. Therefore, all of these thoughts which we have within our mind, they actually come to this stage after going through an entire cycle. Suppose you have a close friend. You're very friendly with him, close to him. And then someone comes and says that, you know, this friend of yours, he actually involved in a big scandal. And he ripped me off of several thousand, rupees. Be very careful in dealing with him. He just speaks this and goes away. And then immediately after that, that friend comes. When he comes now, your attitude has changed. Because of the information you have just heard. And so you do not behave with him the way you behave normally, because your perception about him is that maybe he's a cheat. And then the first thing he says is, I want to borrow 100 rupees, So immediately you remember what the friend had said. And you're not ready for it, because now your perception of this person has changed because of the information you have just heard. And therefore, this behavior will in turn determine the kind of memories and thoughts which we have with respect to that person. And in this way, every moment we are accumulating millions of various thoughts which are just getting deposited in the repository of our mind. Therefore, we need to go through a process of purification of the mind, because it is just accumulating all of these various thoughts at a rate which we cannot deal with. And hence, Bhagavatam describes that the way to deal with the mind is very specific. And in general, you have to know what is the kind of cure you are going to apply. And therefore, it is a very great deep science. And there is no room for speculation. And the example is given, Yavan nanartha di prabho na nivartet yukti bhi. Jagarati api swapay agna swapne jagaranam yatha. What is the example? that if you follow the process which is not recommended in the Shastra specifically as the ultimate best cure and remedy, it will be extremely difficult to cure the mind, to purify the mind of all of these negative thoughts. And the example is given that if you follow any whimsical process for purification of the mind without understanding who is the right authority for this, then the effect will be just like, suppose a person is sleeping. All of us have example that we are sleeping, we have experience that we set up the alarm for early in the morning and the alarm goes off at 4:30. As soon as I hear the alarm, I want to get up, but I check the time. It is only 4:30. And I think, anyway I have got up, let me just sleep 10 more minutes. Just 10 more minutes. I am in control. I have already got up. I know I have got up. And no one can stop me. I am getting up. But just a few moments more. And then you keep the alarm aside, make sure that you switch it off, and then you continue sleeping. As you are sleeping, you start dreaming. You go into a dream phase in those few minutes. And what do you see in that dream? In the dream you see that you have got up. In the dream you see that you are taking a bath. In the dream you see that you are attending Mangalarti. In the dream you see you are leading Mangalarti. Everything is going on perfectly and the whole temple is dancing. And as you are seeing this dream, 45 minutes pass. And then suddenly you wake up with a start and you see 1 hour is over. Now this is called Jagarti api Swapan Agya Swapne Jagaranam Yatha. Seeing within the dream that I have woken up. Therefore when we speak of a cure or some kind of a solution for the mind problem, we are not talking of something theoretical. We are not talking of something which has been speculated. We are not talking of seeing our image of having woken up within a dream. We are talking of actually waking up. Unless we take the right remedy, the right process, we will simply feel that we have woken up. But we will actually still be sleeping. Therefore, make sure that the remedy you take is bona fide and it wakes you up completely. Another example is given. I am sleeping and suddenly in my dream I see that a tiger is chasing me. The tiger is chasing me full speed and I am running. Running. And I go and run into the Grand Road station and the tiger is chasing me in the Grand Road station also. And fast train comes, I jump into the train. And I see the tiger also jumped in. I got down, get down in the next station, tiger also gets down. Still running at full speed. Sweating completely. And my friend sees that I'm miserable. And my friend understands that maybe some tiger is chasing him because I'm shouting, tiger, come on. Stop it, you don't have a ticket. You can't get on the train. Forget it. And I'm shouting like this. So he understands maybe tiger is chasing. So he takes a stick, comes next to me and goes to sleep. Why? To enter into my dream. And chase the tiger in my dream through his dream. Does that make sense? But this is the kind of philanthropic activity or any other speculative process which you try to undertake to help a person suffering under the influence of his uncontrolled mind. It just doesn't make sense. So when a person is suffering and is crying out under the influence of his impure mind, then there is only one thing you can do. What do you do to a sleeping man? Wake him up. when he wakes up, he realizes that this entire thing was a dream. It was a nightmare. I was just hallucinating and seeing this. Therefore, most of our frustrations and anxieties are all a result of misidentification. And so the recommended process is to wake up. So when I talk about this consciousness, right now we are having mundane material consciousness where we are identifying ourselves with this body. And this material consciousness is leading to certain material attitudes, certain kinds of materialistic perceptions and behavior which is under the influence of the three modes. And therefore, the memory and the thought processes are also within the influence of the modes and create a lot of fear and anxiety. Hence, the solution is not something superficial. The solution is if you change that consciousness from mundane material consciousness to spiritual consciousness and somehow get a clue of how to do that, automatically the whole cycle is replaced. You develop real attitudes, spiritual attitudes. You develop the proper Krishna conscious absolute perception of what is the reality without any illusion. Then your behavior is actually in tune with the original, true, pure spiritual self. And therefore, all memories of previous sinful activities and previous horrible conditionings are erased. And one's thoughts become pure, pristine, crystal clear, and filled with joy. And in this way, we can see a complete change in one's whole life experience. So when someone is sick, when he goes to the doctor, then the doctor and the patient have a discussion. When the doctor and the patient discuss, first the patient expresses his problem, the doctor analyzes the problem. But what is the most important part of the interaction between the doctor and the patient? The medicine. If the patient goes to the doctor and talks for 1 hour in detail, and then when he gives the medicine, he says, okay, you keep it. No problem. I've seen this before. No problem. He will come back again the next week with no change. Therefore, we are focusing today's discussion on the practice part. That if you are taking the medicine, then you have to actually take the medicine regularly and then the effect will be seen. So the biggest problem in this land of India is not that there is not sufficient medicine. The medicines have been distributed, but people are not taking it seriously, not applying it, not practicing it. Therefore, we will now see how, if we actually understand and appreciate the problem, then we will see the importance of taking this medicine. So having discussed the mind mechanism, I'll go to the second part, and that is what exactly I mean by cancer of the mind. Go ahead. So there are 3 basic concepts which I want to discuss within the purview of mind cancer. And this, when the mundane material consciousness with an uncontrolled mind filled with all kinds of negative thoughts, primarily is affected by these 3 main infections. There could be many, but we are going to focus on these 3. It is like cancer because it just enters the system and starts growing, starts spreading like anything, and consumes our entire mental space. And then ultimately we are critically diseased and we find it practically impossible to come out of it. And therefore I call it cancer of the mind. And a few months back, His Grace Radheshyam Prabhu was speaking briefly before His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj. And in that talk, he brought out this concept. And I picked up from there. And I thought that this is a very, very important principle. So this is what we are going to discuss. Compare, complain, and criticize. How many of us here in this audience feel that we have any of these problems? You can compare. Just see, it's a universal problem. All of us face it. And therefore, I would like to briefly discuss on these three principles. First is compare. And I have some interesting quotes on comparison. So this is how we'll do it. That we'll first go through the quotes, and I'll discuss some of the symptoms, what is the cause, what are the effects, and what is the cure for this. So let's take compare. The first quote, why compare yourself with others? No one in the entire world can do a better job of being you than you. Second, when you stop comparing what is right here and now with what you wish were, you can begin to enjoy what is. When you are content to be simply yourself and don't compare and compete, everybody will respect you. Another quote says, winners compare their achievements with their goals, while losers compare their achievements with those of other people. Next, compare your griefs with other men's and they will seem less. That's why one of the reasons why newspapers sell so much. When people are frustrated, they open the newspaper in the morning and they see the headline, 100 killed. And they feel, my God, I am alive. It's a good day. And they forget all the night's miseries. And they read through the whole article very carefully and they congratulate themselves. I am still alive. So newspapers give them a lot of hope that in spite of so much of misery, I am still surviving. Prabhupada asked one devotee, what is the definition of good morning? And then he said, I don't know. And Prabhupada said, good morning means nothing horrible has happened as yet. Because the material world is a place of misery. So if you compare yourself with others, the next quote, you may become vain and bitter. For always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. So therefore, this is a very, very important principle. So as I already explained, that we are in a stage of infection, material infection. So when you are admitted in the hospital because of infection, and you are in a ward where different people have been admitted, each person has a specific infection, a specific disease. And therefore, someone is coughing because of TB, somebody is vomiting, somebody is having backache, somebody's leg has been put in a cast, and is crying out in pain because his leg is hurting. Each person has a different type of pain. And the nurse comes, the doctor comes and gives medicines to each patient according to what is wrong with him. So one person gets a big injection. So when he is getting the injection, he can't tell the doctor, why only me? Give to him also. To the person right there. And someone whose leg is up in a cast like that, he can't say, why the hell you have only held my leg like this? Put other's leg also like that. No, because that is his problem. So when you are in a hospital ward, you get a specific treatment according to what you need. And therefore comparison of treatments doesn't make any sense at all. And here we find that in the material world, the mundane comparison is just based on this principle of how I am better than others. And we want to establish this principle. So the conditioned soul is obsessed with how he can establish his supremacy and superiority over others. And we fail to recognize what is it that we have received. And so the mind is always in a state of disturbance. I give this example that many times when we are serving out prasad for hundreds of people in a pangat, and everyone is sitting in a line and the patras are served, and you serve all the items to the people one by one. And many times I have observed that when the items are falling on the plate, the people are more anxious to see what is falling in others' plate than to see what has fallen in my plate. So maybe in that other line in front, sabji and dal is going, and some other sabji is going, and this fellow has already received one sabji, but he's saying, hey, what about that? Give me that immediately. And sometimes some items are less. Sometimes some item is made less, sometimes 2 sweets are made, but each one is limited quantity. So sometimes while serving out, what I do is, in one line, I ask one of the sweets to be distributed, in another line, another sweet, thinking that nobody will observe. But while eating, people suddenly get so much of flexibility in their neck, they have 360-degree rotation. And they check out what is being distributed in the other line also. I didn't get that. You have to give me that. But you already have, no, but what about that? So we are quite interested in comparing all the time. And 24 hours the processing is going on comparison. And therefore, the symptoms I would like to discuss now. First is, everyone compares their education, their talent, their skills. And it is like one of the biggest anxieties for students. And especially in India, where educational institutions are few, of good repute, the population is so huge, the seats are so limited, right from 5th standard, 6th standard, people are in anxiety. Will I get admission? Will I not get admission? Will I get in? Will I not get in? And competitive exams can be sometimes so excruciatingly painful. Sometimes 1.5, 2 lakh people appear for exam just for 500,000 seats. So you can imagine the kind of anxiety people are in. Because there is this intense pressure. So therefore it is not that this pressure is something which has been artificially created, it is there. But we should know that the anxiety is created because we are constantly trying to compare with what others have. Our Brahma Tirtha Prabhu, Bob Cohen, he was giving a class here and he was saying that he attended a scientific conference. And in that scientific conference, he met a scientist, or he met one of the delegates who gave him a business card. And in that card his name was written and qualification was written PhD BF. He said, my God, I've never seen a qualification like this. What does it mean? He said, PhD but fail. So he said, why, what is the purpose of writing this? He said, at least I got the PhD on the card, I registered, but I couldn't complete. And hardly anyone asks me what is that BF. They think it is something beyond PhD. So they never ask it. But because I have to show myself that I am something, so I have to do this. So therefore, most of the anxiety we go through is because we are constantly comparing. How am I with respect to the others? So this is one principle. In fact, I used to go to preach in the medical colleges. And many times I have seen Jai Shri Radha Gopinath Ji ki, Sai Gaur Chandra ki, Girdhari Gopal ki. that boys have entered into medical and engineering colleges not because of their desire, but because there is pressure from society, from family, from others. And after entering into the college, they are bewildered. And they ask basic questions. What am I doing here? I don't want to be doing this. And they don't know how to cope with that situation. And they don't have the required skills to deal with it, so they are constantly comparing themselves with others and go into a total depression. Just before exam, I had gone to attend one class. I had gone to give a class on the Gita in one of these colleges. And the exam was next day, and this boy was in total anxiety. And one of the devotees said, "We just speak to him, he's not studying at all." And I went to his room and he was looking totally lost. And he didn't know what he was doing. And then I said, "Let's go for a walk, maybe you'll feel fresh." And we walked out. And then he was telling me how he is not able to concentrate at all because he doesn't have the skills to go through this whole course. And as we were walking, we saw a dog which was sleeping on the side of the road. And this boy who is in a medical college, he is looking at the dog and says, "Just see how fortunate this dog is. No exams, no tension, no problem, so peaceful." And I'm thinking, just see, so many people are trying to get into this college. And he has somehow got in. But because at every moment you are comparing, therefore you start comparing yourself with those who are already there, and if you are not up to it, you really can't be peaceful. And then we find that in the last few months, one of the biggest news in the education field has been a series of suicides at IIT. I graduated from IIT in 1993, 89 to 93. And for the outside world, it represents something like a heavenly planet, where very few fortunate, after performing Mahayagya, can go. Right? But only after entering into that, you realize that it requires a lot of other skills to actually understand what is happening. And there, I have found so many times, people after entering into that college, they get into a kind of syndrome that they feel they are out of place. And even when I was a student, there would be at least one suicide per year. And last few months we heard there was a suicide in IIT Kharagpur, there was a suicide in IIT Kanpur, there was a suicide in IIT Delhi, there was a suicide in IIT Bombay. Only Chennai is remaining for this year. But in this last 1 year, all of these IITs, they had suicide. One of the main reasons, academic pressure, but more than academic pressure, peer pressure. Peer pressure. What will others say? How will others perceive me? And I know one student, when I was studying, instead of getting a gold medal, he got a silver medal. And he attempted suicide. Can you imagine? Just because he could not come near the goal. He could not get the goal. Why? Because he was comparing himself. That okay, I could not get that top place. And there are so many people with KTs and they have no problem in life. They are moving around peacefully without the least problem. And their philosophy in life is, getting in is my problem, getting out is the college problem. So from where they get this understanding is, they are now in a group where they are comparing themselves with others. Oh, I have only 2 KT, he has 4 KT. That is their comparison standard. So someone at top level has different standards, someone at bottom level has different standards. They are in their own world. So even in IIT, during my time, there were people who instead of doing 4-year BTech, did 8-year BTech. That means it took them 8 years to pass out. Because when I joined as a freshie, they would introduce me during ragging. You know who he is? I joined in 89. Said, he's from the 82 batch. He is one of those Mahajans who is still here. He is like the Bhishma of this hostel. He is still hanging around. No professor can pass him. He has taken a vow. And his All India rank was so high when he entered. But somehow something happened during college years in the hostel. And this person would have KTs from the first year, like engineering, drawing, physical training, or some of these really obscure subjects. But he had become a wizard in computer. And he helped several generations of students pass in their project by debugging all their programs. But he couldn't clear himself. That is because, such a person was caught into this whole system of being with a group where they were just comparing with each other and felt, okay, this is sufficient. So this comparison is something which affects us at all levels. And one of the biggest areas where it attacks is for students when they are studying. Or, for example, with talents and certain skills. So each person has a unique set of talents, unique set of skills. Someone can sing well, someone can draw well, someone has computing skills, someone has other skills, another person doesn't have. Everyone cannot have everything. It is not possible. But many times when people are in a group, or in a friend circle, they just see each other's skills and they get in anxiety. Comparing with other skills puts them in total anxiety, frustration, because they realize they don't have something which he has. But we fail to understand that each person has a unique place. Just like in an orchestra, different instruments are playing. The flute is playing, the cello is playing, the violin is playing, the drum is playing, the trumpet is playing. And if each performs according to his capacity, it is all going to add to the orchestra. So it is not that the person playing trumpet thinks that why that violin is playing? Why I can't make sound like violin? He can't do that. He has to follow what the director is saying. And for most people who don't know music, they don't understand why the hell this fellow is going all the way like this. They think he's threatening them or what? What exactly he's doing for the last 1 hour? But he is giving the direction. So if you want a nice symphony, each person has to play his role. And each person has an important role to play. But if the trumpet fellow feels that his violin has been playing for so long, now I have to show something. And then suddenly, in the middle of nowhere, when he is supposed to keep quiet, he starts pa 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 pa. So the whole symphony goes out of place. And the director is bewildered. He is pointing to him, stop, stop. Pa 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 pa. So who are you to tell me? So if he doesn't cooperate and just does his job as is expected, the whole music is finished. Therefore, all of us must know that in God's symphony, the plan of the Supreme Lord, each one of us has a place. Therefore, we should not be in anxiety. We should not think that we are not part of the orchestra. Each one of us has a role to play in our own unique way. And time will reveal what role we have to play at what time in what fashion. Therefore, we should wait patiently with the right consciousness so that we allow the Lord to reveal the plans to us. Second is wealth. wealth, there is a lot of anxiety about how much wealth I am earning, and people tend to compare the money which they have earned with others. Lifestyle and opulence. So there is a story of Alexander the Great. So all of you know that Alexander the Great, he earned so much of wealth, he conquered over practically so many kingdoms. But then he entered into India and he was struck down by malaria. And his army could not proceed ahead, and he and his whole army had to retreat back. Such a big, powerful army, but all of them defeated by malaria. So I always make this line when I say this. What the biggest armies in the world could not do, Indian mosquitoes did. Defeated the whole army. And as Alexander was on the way to Greece, the symptoms intensified. And he realized he can't reach Greece back in time. He called all of his ministers and said, I have 3 last wishes. Please make sure that these wishes are executed. He said, what are those wishes? He said, first wish, after my death, you should carry my dead body on a palanquin, on an earthy, and the 4 corners should be held by 4 doctors. The same doctors who treated me. They should carry it. Second, as this procession is moving forward with my dead body, they should throw jewels and various kinds of gold coins in front. And thirdly, you keep my dead body in a way where both of my hands are outstretched and hanging out. So the minister said, what is the reason for this? Alexander said, I have a message for the world. And the message is that I spend practically all my energy and effort in life to acquire and amass wealth. So much of wealth, so much of opulence, conquered over so many lands. Let the world see that when disease strikes you and death claims you, no doctor can save you. So when the doctors are carrying the dead body, the message is very clear. That these were the same people who tried their best but could not do much in the end. Because after a certain time, nothing can be done. Second, let people know that all of the wealth which I earn ultimately is of no use for me personally. Because my dead body is there and it is just strewn on the path. And thirdly, let my hands be outstretched so that everyone can see that I didn't carry anything with me. I came in empty-handed and I'm going away empty-handed. So this is a very, very important principle to understand. That as far as wealth and money is concerned, there is no end to it. And when we keep comparing, that comparison only puts us in constant anxiety. And therefore, we are unable to satisfy ourselves fully and even enjoy what we have in the present peacefully. Because we are always in anxiety about what I don't have in comparison to others. So this is a very, very critical principle. One very rich, wealthy businessman came to meet Srila Prabhupada. And he told Srila Prabhupada that I have this huge factory in Jaipur. And I have this another big factory in Delhi. And I have another this factory in another city. And I have so many factories, but I am not able to sleep at night. Because there are so many problems. Prabhupada said, give those factories to us and go to sleep. Peacefully. He got scared. Immediately got up and said, okay, Swamiji, I take your leave. Prabhupada said, give me your address. He said, no. I will come to you. I have your address. Prabhupada said, I need your address also, so that I can come to you. And finally gave his address and he went, and Prabhupada said, just see, he has so much. But because the conception is, I am the enjoyer, I am the doer. Therefore, we are all trying to play the role of surrogate God. But only God has all the wealth, all the money, all the opulence. And instead of giving peace, this kind of mentality of comparison simply puts us in constant anxiety. Then, as far as beauty, that is another cause for anxiety when we compare beauty or health, etc. So each person has been given with a specific form according to his previous life's karma. But people become so anxious about the way they look and the way people will perceive me. And that's one of the reasons why the cosmetic industry is running so much. Because it promises you that we will make you what you want to be. And therefore we find that all of these balms and lotions and hair, doing things, they sell like anything because people are trying to struggle against the reality which they find themselves in. Therefore, this kind of comparison also leads to a lot of anxiety. And one of the most amazing things is that in different parts of the world, the conception of beauty is different. But still, people are always comparing and trying to achieve a status which they don't have. And therefore, when Prabhupada comes and says, I am not the body, I am the soul, which is totally different from the conception which we have always had, it relieves us from all that anxiety. So this kind of comparison will put us in anxiety. Another is position, prestige and power. When you compare, you see that, oh, what is his position? What is his prestige with respect to what I have? And then, instead of trying to see what I have, I'm trying to achieve a certain position. And all of my energy and effort goes into that. So whole life goes in this fashion. And then if we look back and think of the moments of peace which we have experienced, we will see that practically all the time was spent in climbing up a ladder and achieving a position where ultimately I cannot stay for long anyway. And as the example is given, that ultimately at a certain point of time, all of these assets will be snatched away. And the last is about fame and reputation. Each one has a certain kind of fame, reputation, known for certain skills. And then we are trying to achieve a certain kind of fame. And we are comparing with others. How we can do that? To the extent that sometimes people don't mind even becoming criminal. That at least somehow or the other, let me become famous. Let me be known. Let the world come to know about my exploits and achievements. In fact, the police raided one of the top underworld dons in Bombay a few years back. And they found a big suitcase. And that suitcase was filled with letters of application from youth from all over Maharashtra. And the letter said that it was addressed to this don. And the letter said, we have a desire to become famous criminals. We are inspired by your example. Please, you enroll us in your gang and train us up. And then they wrote that we are attaching our qualifications. 10 times went to jail for pickpocket. So many riots participated. Broke this down, broke that down. And all of their other things they wrote. So people, when they do not have the proper guidance, they go to any extent without understanding what is the goal of life. And therefore, at a lower level it may be like this, at a higher level also, when somebody is obsessed with the desire to be popular and famous, he can go out of his way to perform all kinds of sinful activities. Forget everything about proper character and behavior just so that he can achieve his goal. So this is like a cancer. It is like a disease which affects. So what is the cause? The cause of this is greed. The greed or the desire to achieve more and more and more. There is no end to it. And what is the effect? The effect is very interesting. The effect is, first, many times people may either go into an inferiority complex or superiority complex, but most often you will often find people who have more than you, so you will feel inferior. And this leads to loss of enthusiasm. There is frustration and there is depression. And we find that in spite of having the ability to achieve things, because of simply being obsessed with others, one is not able to exploit even the talents which we have been given with. So what is the use? It is simply a criminal waste. Therefore, the cure is very important. And what is the cure? The cure is, number one, satisfaction. One has to be satisfied with what one has and understand that satisfaction is like a shoe for the mind, which is like the leg. When the leg is covered by the shoe, then you may pass through all kinds of terrains, some smooth ones, some rocky ones, some filled with pebbles and thorns. But because the shoe is on, the leg is not affected. Similarly, if you cover your mind with this kavacha, or the shoe of satisfaction, then in all circumstances you will experience a deep peace and contentment, which is quite different from the experience of constantly trying to achieve something which you don't have. And the second is feeling of gratitude. And the concept of feeling grateful for what you already have. Therefore, we have been given with such facilities. We should exploit these facilities to the fullest and not keep worrying about what we don't have. So this is the first kind of cancer compare. Second is complain. So there are some interesting quotes on complaining. Don't complain that you are not getting what you want. Just be glad that you are not getting what you deserve. If you have time to whine and complain about something, then you have the time to do something about it. The pessimist complains about the wind. The optimist expects it to change. The realist adjusts the sails. Next, we can throw stones, complain about them, stumble on them, climb over them, or build with them. So therefore, if someone throws stones, then we can collect those stones and build a proper shelter. You can complain because roses have thorns, or you can rejoice because thorns have roses. Don't pray for rain if you are going to complain about the mud. People who complain about the way the ball bounces are usually the ones who dropped it. Next, the old begin to complain of the conduct of the young when they themselves are no longer able to set a bad example. I had no shoes and complained. until I met a man who had no feet. Why compare yourself with others? This is a repeat of that compare quotes. So this is a series of very beautiful quotes on complaint, and let us see some of the symptoms of complaining. First is personal suffering. So each one of us goes through a certain quota of suffering, certain experience of suffering, and we feel that this is happening to me and this is not fair, and why am I experiencing this? So therefore we start complaining about our situation to others, to God, and feel that this is improper. But we should realize one thing, that when a child is small and he is taken to the doctor, the parents do not tell the child that they are taking the child to the doctor for an injection. The parents tell the child, we are going for a picnic. And then the child agrees to come. When the child goes to the doctor's clinic, then he smells something fishy. He realizes that this place doesn't smell like a picnic spot. But still he is quiet. He enters into the doctor's cabin and the doctor takes out his big needle. And when he sees that, he is convinced this is not a picnic at all. But then before he can do anything, the nurses catch hold of him. The doctor is saying, don't worry beta, nothing will happen. And the child is petrified, bewildered, and he cries out, Mommy, Daddy, do something. And both parents say, don't worry beta, nothing will happen. And that bewilders him more, because he felt at least the parents will help me. But he realizes they are also with the doctor. The whole experience is confusing. He's going through this suffering, he can't understand why. But when he grows up, the same child walks to the doctor's clinic, takes out money from his pocket, gives to the doctor, and tells the doctor, give me the injection. What has changed? The experience of the pain has changed? No. Maturity has changed. The vision has changed. He realizes this is good for my protection. This is pain, but this pain will protect me from the pain of all kinds of other sufferings. Therefore, we have gone through a certain level of karmic activities in previous lives, and when we are put through the suffering condition by God Himself, these are simply doses to protect us from the cycle of repeated birth and death. And therefore, an intelligent person doesn't complain. He realizes that I may go through all of this experience, but in the end, if I take shelter of the Supreme Lord, He is protecting me. He is the Supreme Doctor. He knows what is best for me. And I will take this medicine regularly. The medicine of the holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So this medicine is so powerful that as I am taking this medicine, there may be other kinds of experiences. But I am willing to go through it because I realize what I am going to get in the end. So I give this example that many times during our Sunday program, you will see huge crowds of people. 2,000 people are standing and they are waiting to take prasad. So many times the person who is serving prasad, he gets into anxiety after seeing the line whether the prasad will remain or not. That is like one of the topmost fears. And he is seeing that line and he is seeing no end to that line. And as the line progresses, that fear is growing in his mind because his stomach is empty, he wants to eat. So what he does is he starts giving lesser and lesser. So the sabji he starts giving like chutney. And the people come and complain that why the hell is serving like this? So what we generally do, I used to do before, I would go and make a plate right in front of that person, to the server. Take the plate and say, okay, this is your plate. And you put as much as you want. And after making all the plate, all the items, cover it and place it right under him. And tell him that this is your plate meant for you. At the end of the service, this is there. As soon as that plate is made, his whole mood changes. Starts giving like anything. Why? What has changed? Whole attitude has changed. Line is still long. And it is never ending. And when people are coming, they are also cribbing and making complaints also. Hey, same aloo sabji this time also. What is the problem? You don't have any other vegetable. Why you are not giving this? Why you are not giving that? So while serving also you have to hear so many comments. And he's standing for hours together. That is also painful. It is suffering condition. But he's willing to go through it because he knows at the end there is mercy. Waiting right here. The mercy is guaranteed. Mercy means prasad. So when that is assured, that automatically gives us tolerance. And sometimes even people who are taking the plate, they see that this fellow is giving so much. And they tell him, hey, save some for yourself also. He says, no, Vaishnav Seva. So much of detachment. Why detachment? Because he knows, my quota is guaranteed. When you go through life with faith in God, then this is how one experiences and has the vision of suffering condition in life. Therefore, a devotee, when he goes through these conditions, doesn't complain. Second is, one may not be very happy with the way things are managed. And he may have so many issues about mismanagement. Bhagavatam describes Pitama Samahsami Prasade Girishopama. That Brahmaji is quoted as someone who manages the universe, but even he is criticized by the gopis. That you created eyelids, which is preventing us from taking complete darshan of the Lord. So Prabhupada writes in the purport, when you are managing, it is practically impossible to satisfy all parties. Even Brahma couldn't manage that. Even he was criticized by the topmost gopis. So what to speak of any ordinary people? So therefore, when a group of people are trying to do something, it is very difficult to be satisfied. So when we complain, it is not that it is always bad. If it is for the improvement, it is fine. But when we are trying to project our dissatisfaction in a way which is not going to help, then it doesn't make any sense at all. Thirdly, when we perceive injustice and we feel this was not correct, this should not have been done like this is unjust, and with so many things are going on. So again, if this complaint is not based on proper understanding and one is not authorized, doesn't make much sense. It only leaves us depleted, devoid of enthusiasm. And fourth is misbehavior. And misbehavior with respect to how the other people are dealing with me. How this person doesn't deal with me properly. How this organization is not dealing with me. How they are behaving with me in a certain way which is not according to my status. So one perceives misbehavior and there is a reason for complaint. So, Srila Prabhupada gives the example that even when a person engages in the process of Krishna consciousness, even when you are trying to distribute Krishna consciousness, God consciousness, distribute spiritual knowledge, even then people feel this is not something which you should be doing. Because knowledge of God is not something which should be distributed openly. You should not be singing and chanting God's names loudly, because God is something to be perceived deep within. and therefore you should not do this. So many times the preaching activity and the distribution of spiritual knowledge is seen as misbehavior by many people. And Srila Prabhupada, when he was preaching Krishna consciousness, he was experiencing many such cases, lot of opposition. And in fact, some of his devotees told Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was taking great risks. He was sending people even to preach in various places where no Vaishnavas had gone before. So some of his disciples came to him and said, there is a very nice nightclub here, and we want to go and preach in that nightclub. Please give your blessings. Prabhupada said, I give you blessings to go, but make sure you come back, because it is such a dangerous place. Therefore, the preaching of Krishna consciousness was something which Srila Prabhupada specifically introduced all over the world, because people are in such a delicate condition of not knowing what to do in life. Therefore, it is an emergency. It is critical, and this message has to be given. The medicine is there, but nobody knows about the medicine. Just imagine, people are struggling hard to find a cure for AIDS, to find a cure for cancer. And if someone comes up with a medicine today, don't you think it is an occasion for great celebration? As soon as the medicine comes in effect, it will be propagated all over the world like wildfire. 500 years back, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu descended and gave this medicine to cure the disease and the cancer of the mind. Enechi aushadhi maya nashibaro lagi, harinama mahamantra lao tumi magi. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has freely and profusely distributed this medicine. But we are not aware that the medicine exists for curing this cancer. Therefore, we have to help others. Distribute this medicine. First, take the medicine yourself, experience the effect, and then share it with others. And it is the duty of the youth to take to this, first of all, because this is the age where all our attitudes, habits, and concepts will transform and change. And therefore, these youth festivals are so important, because here you understand, where am I going wrong? How am I diseased? How can I apply this medicine in my life? But unfortunately, you will find many people who complain that youth is not a time for you to practice spirituality. And you may be meeting many friends who will be quite astonished that at this age you are going to temple and sitting to program, and even on Sundays you go. What kind of temple is this? Everything all right with you? Something wrong? This is not the age to practice this. This is a common theme. One of our devotees was mentioning in a youth festival, Gaurang Prabhu, he was preaching to a boy, and he decided to become serious and become part of the temple. So his father came and he started arguing that my son is young. This is not the age for him to practice spirituality. He should practice when he is my age, and then only he should come to the temple. So he told the father, okay, we will release the son, you come and join. He said, I have to ask my wife. He went, came back next day and said, let the son remain. No problem. Now, at this age, if someone takes to spirituality, in modern society, it is seen as something strange. But no, this is the age when you have to understand what are the principles of spiritual life. Now is the time to make the paradigm shift and then understand the cure which is available. So therefore, the cause for this is very interesting. The cause for complaint is anger, pent-up anger. And the reason for this anger is because each one is thinking that I am in control. The false ego convinces us that I can control events, situations, people. Just like if you are tied by a rope to a truck and you are trying to control the movement of the truck with the help of that rope, is it possible? And if there are multiple ropes and multiple trucks and we are trying to stop all of those trucks from moving forward, what a foolish proposal is this? So each one of us have developed false identity. I am a husband. I am a CEO. I am a topper student. I am a very charming friend. I am this, I am that. So many identities we have created. And we are all attached to those identities through this rope. But we have no control over those situations. And according to the influence of the modes, as the situations change, we are not able to control ourselves. Therefore, this illusion that I am in control has to be given up. And we become extremely angry when we realize that situation is beyond my control. And therefore we start complaining because I expect everything to happen the way I have thought about it and planned it. Because I think I can control. Therefore the effect is there is pain. We become deaf, blind and dumb to the present moment. There is discontentment and infatuation. And in this way, we are unable to reciprocate and understand what is our true identity. So we'll quickly go through the third part, which is criticize. What is the solution to this? The cure for complaining is first is appreciation. Appreciate the situation you are in. Appreciate others. Appreciate what kind of austerities someone has performed in order to achieve a certain position, to help you get certain facilities. Appreciate that. Appreciate the suffering condition I have been put in. That yes, there must be a purpose to this. Girayo varshadhara birhanyamana navivyatu abhibhuyamana vyasanai yatha adhokshaja chetasa. Just like when there is severe rainfall on top of a mountain, that rainfall cleanses all the dust from the top of the mountain. Therefore, maybe this rainfall of misery will purify me. Appreciate this. And secondly, we have to be forgiving. And understand that yes, unless I develop forgiveness, it is impossible to maintain any relationships in this world. Therefore, forgiveness is very important. And most importantly, be willing to forgive your own selves. Because many times we just have such high expectations from ourselves, thinking that I am in control of everything, and when things don't go the way we expect, we sometimes don't forgive ourselves. And we become so much filled with anxiety because of that. Third is criticism. And there is a bunch of nice quotes on criticism also. Before you criticize someone, walk a mile in their shoes. That way when you criticize them, you are at least a mile away from them. Plus, you also have their shoes. He has a right to criticize who has a heart to help. Before you go and criticize the younger generation, just remember who raised them. Those who can do, those who can't criticize. Let me walk 3 weeks in the footsteps of my enemy, carry the same burden, have the same trials, before I say one word to criticize. Before you speak, listen. Before you write, think. Before you spend, earn. Before you invest, investigate. Before you criticize, wait. Before you pray, forgive. Before you quit, try. Before you retire, save. Before you die, give. So this is some interesting quotes. What are the symptoms? The first symptom is to see only bad. To see only bad. Even if something good is there, you don't see that at all. you see only bad things, only faults. Like Prabhupada was in Juhu, and a group of his disciples were there, and they were offering obeisances to Srila Prabhupada. And one gentleman was sitting there, and he started criticizing that, Swamiji, you are a human being. Why they are offering obeisances to you? Why offering dandavats to you? So Prabhupada said, this same question they are also asking, that why you are not offering obeisances to me? And as far as they are concerned, they are 25, you are 1, and this is India where there is democracy, majority wins. So better you understand what is the Vedic principle of offering respect to the Guru. So here, even in the land of India, people have misconceptions, misunderstanding, and therefore, even in spiritual circles, many times they see only bad. The second is to see the good and bad, but select the bad. Both are seen, but you prefer only something which is bad. The third is to see the little bad and magnify it. So there is a lot which can be said about these things, but since we are running out of time, we will just go through all the points which we have, then we can take some questions. As far as the cause for criticism is concerned, the cause for criticism is pride. False pride. Because I think I am better than others. And therefore I have the right to judge others. And I know what is correct. What is the effect of criticism? Effect of criticism is there is discouragement. There is offense. And when we offend others, it may result in a fall down. And this is a very critical principle. So Srila Prabhupada, he warned us about offending others. And any time when we commit an offense, it has a certain reaction. So we have the example in Bhagavatam of Daksha Prajapati offending Lord Shiva, and he had to pay a price for that. So what is the cure for this? One must be humble, and in a state of humility, glorify Krishna, glorify the devotees, glorify the efforts of others, and have a proper understanding of what facility has been given to me to practice in my own life. Therefore, with this mood, one can overcome the tendency to criticize. And this is very, very important principle. So Srimad Bhagavatam encourages us to develop this vision. The vision of seeing good in others. To see little good and magnify. Nanu dveshti kalim samrat saranga iva sarabhuk kushalani ashu siddhyanti netarani. Maharaj Parikshit forgave Kali because Kali had this one good quality, that you do little good in Kali Yuga, even in the mind, and you get the results. If you commit a sin in the mind, you get no reaction. But you commit a sin actually, physically, then you get the reaction. Therefore, Kali Yuga has this double advantage. Because of this, Maharaj Parikshit forgave Kali. Shri Radha Gopinath Ji ki, Shri Snitai Gaur Chandra ki, Shri Girdhari Gopal ki. So we have this facility in this day and age to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ramo, Ramo Ramo, Hare Hare. This is the ultimate cure which has been given. And once we take this medicine on a regular basis, gradually we'll become purified of the influence of all of these cancers. And we will develop these positive qualities automatically. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
who has question can kindly raise their hands and we'll pass on the microphone and you could ask your questions.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So you have told that the cancer, that compare. So Prabhuji, it is the main for the progression of our life. If we compare ourselves, we can progress. Let us take example that when one person who is student, if he compare himself that with others, then only then he can progress in life.
Right.
Then how is it cancer in that sense?
How is it negative? So this question is very important, that when we speak of comparison, we are speaking of the negative connotation of how it affects us negatively when we are not control over this feeling. In one sense, we also feel inspired when we see others. Right? And depending on the kind of inspiration we gain, our life changes. So his point is, when we compare others' performances, then we feel inspired to do more. If you are inspired like that, it is very good. But the most important principle is to understand that if you are not careful and not in control, gradually that just becomes a second nature. And therefore you just are caught up with a whole series of thoughts which is beyond your control. So therefore we say that be in control of the situation. And the motive for working should not be comparing with others, but the motive for working should be to satisfy the Supreme Lord. And that is the message of the Gita. How to work with detachment. So the proper motive for work should be understood. And generally when we are comparing, we compare ourselves with others who are staying with us. And that creates more problem. You don't compare with other species. Right? You don't, compare with a dog and feel I should also look like him. You don't look at some other species and think I should also jump like him. I should also run like them. No. Within the same species and within those who are staying in their vicinity, you are constantly comparing. So therefore in student life, we have seen that definitely, as you say, it has some positive influence that you are inspired to work. But that is because so far we didn't have any other motive. So the idea we are trying to introduce is understand that the real motive is that you have been given with a certain facility to serve the Supreme and use those facilities to satisfy and serve Him. And do not get into this whole comparison mode and think that this is the only way in which I can do things. Right? So many times when you have to get up in the morning, it helps to be with people who are getting up. Because that association works on the same principle, that you get a chance to compare with others and get inspired. So definitely the inspirational aspect is there. If you are getting up at 3:30, 4 in the morning and everyone is getting up, so you also feel, let me also get up. But if you are the only one who has kept an alarm for 3:30 and you get up and you see everyone is stone dead, sleeping and snoring loudly, then you feel that I should also join them. You feel inspired that okay, I should also do what they are doing. And immediately you go back to sleep. Why? Because of that association. But we are talking about coming to a stage where you start comparing with things you cannot possibly achieve, cannot do, and you become totally anxious about it. Then that becomes a negative principle. Okay? Any other question?
As there are three cancers of the mind and there are effects of these cancers and there is cure for these cancers, then as per you said, the medicine is between the doctor and patient. So this cure is also for the cancer. In respect, it's the medicine as compared to. Then where is the main medicine, the holy name of the God?
This is the medicine. Holy name is the medicine.
And what is the position of this medicine? At the topmost? And then this cure is coming for every cancer?
You are talking about which cancer?
The cancer of the mind.
Yes. So the cure for the cancer of the mind is the holy name, Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has recommended. And by chanting, we become gradually purified of this contamination. So all of these other principles are falling in place when you go through this purification. Like that. Yes, doctor.
Hare Krishna.
How are you?
Prabhu, thank you for asking me. I want to know, you said that there is no wealth that can be carried to the next birth or anything, but is there any wealth which can be carried to the next birth and birth after birth?
Yes, that wealth is the spiritual opulence, the spiritual consciousness, the wealth of the holy name, which can be carried to the next life. And therefore this is the only wealth which we can practically carry. So I generally quote from Chanakya Pandit that there is only one bindu difference between चिता and चिंता. चिता और चिंता में एक बिंदु का अंतर है. चिता शब्द में एक बिंदु लगाओ, चिंता बन जाती है. चिता जीवन में एक बार जलाती है मृत्यु के बाद, और वो भी मृत देह को. लेकिन चिंता क्षण क्षण जीवित व्यक्ति को जलाती है. So therefore, this chinta is something which we all go through every moment. So therefore, most of the chinta in this material world is regarding wealth, opulence, and all of these other things. So I say that the main chinta is for money here, and spiritual world is chinta money. So you give up the chinta about money and you can go to the Chinta Mani Dham. So you carry with you that spiritual consciousness like that. Prabhupada was giving this book, Easy Journey to Other Planets, in Jhansi to one of his friends, and he said, you read this book, you get the technique, you can actually transport to the spiritual world. And he said, after going there, can I come back to Jhansi? Prabhupada, you can't come back. Then I don't want to go. So therefore, I say that human life is just like a rocket, and the soul is a satellite to be launched, and life is a countdown, and death is blast off. And the whole idea is to push the satellite beyond the gravity, the gravitational pull of material desires, so that it can go into orbit into the spiritual world. Therefore, many times people ask me, are you a spiritualist? I say, no, we are space scientists. So therefore, you should know that this whole lifetime of chanting Hare Krishna is a way of programming, deleting corrupt files in the mind and installing fresh programs, so that at the time of death the satellite goes in the right place. So it takes a lot of planning. Before they launch one satellite in space, they plan at least 10, 15, 20 years. So therefore, we have to plan like that. So I think we'll come to an end to this question and answer session.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Gaurang Prabhu, for this wonderful presentation and also enlightening answers to all the questions. I would like to introduce and welcome a few guests who are here this evening. We have with us Dr. Mr. R.K. Anand, Dr. Mr.
Jai Shri Krishna. We are very fortunate to hear what was said this evening. When he mentioned about gratitude, I was thinking of my grandson. He's 2-year-old. And his mother prays before they go to sleep. And she was praying to God and said, and thank you God for everything. And this little boy says, you're welcome. As if God saying through the baby's mouth, welcome my child to my daughter-in-law. Also when it was being said that jab time aayega dekhenge, I remember 2 friends of mine who said this, but they got early heart disease, both of them. And I must say that I, as medical director of Just Lok see, that many Indians especially are getting heart disease much earlier than the rest of the world. And so there is some genetic factor in us, and to compensate for that, what you hear today is the cure. And you don't feel guilty in yourself when you make a mistake, but learn from that mistake. Because it is too boring to make the same mistake again and again. Be ready to make fresh mistakes, but do remember that you have to learn from that mistake, and I keep learning every day when I match my life against absolute standards, what you have heard about today. Also, when it was being said that your greatest refuge is the Lord, and no wonder I sing again and again, Payo ji maine Ram Ratan dhan payo, Payo ji maine Ram Ratan dhan payo, Vastu amolak si mere Satguru, Kirpa kar apnayo, Payo ji maine Ram Ratan dhan payo. And finally, when it was said, whatever you do as a service to the Lord. I'm a doctor. And honestly, in my book which was mentioned, I have said that when a child comes to me, I consider it a privilege, as if the Lord has given me an opportunity to teach this child. So I should do my best. That doesn't cause anxiety in me, because it is His responsibility to cure. I am being used as His servant. So I do this. So my duty is to do this as Ishwar Arpan. And then, whatever happens to the child, I accept as a prasada from the Lord. And supposing the child gets better, I give credit to the Lord. So friends, my young friends, by this you will not lose anything. You will do better in your exams, because now you are not worried all the time, tense about all the time. Because Lord is your guide, not the guidebooks which you see around. So this is the time to consider that you are being guided by the Lord, and it will serve you throughout the life. And now I have seen many examples with my friends, with my relatives, and my colleagues. So may God bless you and carry on these messages which you heard today. Thank you.